All right, we're going to go around the region. We'll start in New Jersey now, and what may be Christie's real pension problem. By now you know about the $1.5 billion in pension payments the governor has failed to make in recent years, and also a state judge ruled that Christie broke the law that he himself had authored and signed about making payments to the retirement plan for state workers. Christie now says he's working on another plan. He says will make it all better. And to be clear, the underfunded pension problem in New Jersey, this was not a creation of Christie. This happened well before him, Republicans and Democrats alike here, that made this problem get to where we are right now. Governor after governor shorted the fund here, but now the gap is reaching, frankly, crisis proportions. But Christie's real pension problem may be all the touchdown celebrating that he's been doing on this issue since he authored it time and time again, and now has later gone back on. Christie, he was eager to pat himself on the back when the deal was announced back in 2011. And then in his first major moment in the national spotlight at the 2012 Republican convention, listen to how Christie described the deal in 2011 and his role in it.
They said it was impossible to touch the third rail of politics, to take on the public sector unions, and to reform a pension and health benefit system that was headed to bankruptcy. But with bipartisan leadership, we saved taxpayers $132 billion over 30 years and saved retirees their pensions. We did it. They said it was impossible to speak the truth to the teachers union.
And about 15 minutes later, he talked about Mitt Romney. But anyway, yeah, that's right. And Christie, he's continued celebrating his pension prowess, even as he cut payments to the fund. Now, right up to the moment that the judge declared the governor had violated the law, Christie was talking about how it was the greatest thing since sliced bread and his critical role in doing it. And you know, Andrew, from my end, I understand. We've seen Scott Walker in Wisconsin. I can go down the litany of states here where governors have taken on the unions and a lot of times won by cutting pension payments and you know, saying labor's the problem and like I said, at least winning when it comes to recalls, etc. However, this governor authored it. This governor celebrated it. This governor said that it was the salvation, and literally the week after he went on and said how great it was again, he then went to trying to fund the whole thing. There's an element of hypocrisy that it's not just about politics or about the positions taken here, the principles. This is just rank hypocrisy cubed.
It's interesting because yes it is, because he's been cheerleading the thing that he did that actually he didn't wind up doing, but he's doing that in a sense to mask a bigger problem, which is he didn't have the money. He didn't have the money to pay for it. That's why he withdrew the contributions. He didn't do it on some ideological grounds or because he wanted to be mean to the unions. It's because his fiscal plan for New Jersey that saved New Jersey didn't. And it hasn't created jobs, and the state's not generating more revenue, and so they don't have the money to pay for the pension plan.
But he could have had the money, Richard. He could have raised taxes, as was on the table.
The millionaire's tax.
That's right. But there's one problem with that. You can't be a Republican believing that you're going to be knighted the Republican nomination for president raising taxes. So that's why that option was off the board. I think it's best summed up this way. Gail Collins in the New York Times.
Yeah, good piece.
Christie's toast. That was her headline.
You know, for me, it's not just, and I'm trying to be fair here. I mean, Corzine did it, McGreevey did it.
I know.
No, okay.
When he says he's trying to be fair.
No. But what I am trying to say is, those guys, they all did the Ponzi scheme, right? Where they borrowed from the fund here, or they inflated their projected revenue figures for the next year. Okay. But Christie came in saying, "I'm not going to play this game anymore." The same problem. First of all, they're $2 billion in the hole straight on the budget. Forget about the pension liabilities, right? They're already $2 billion short that they got to find the funding for. And he's already said no revenues will be on the table because he's not going to raise any taxes for anything. But then you have this on top of it, and he's just as phony as the rest of them. The whole appeal of Christie was that he was authentic, and he was going to tell it the way it is.
Really?
And what does he do? He was worse than even the guys he condemned.
Yeah, I think this was an incredibly dumb move on his behalf. I mean, first of all, the underfunded pensions are one of the greatest problems facing the country. It's about $3 trillion by some estimates around the country. It's a major problem. It's a ticking time bomb for the nation. But for Christie to step into it and try and purport to be the savior, and then to do the exact same thing by not making the payments is madness. I think it hurts him more, at least among Republicans, than the British.
And again, it hurts the thing that he says he's not, which is a phony, right?
The irony from that 2012 Republican National Convention speech where he's like, they said it was the third rail of politics. Turns out it might be, especially for Chris Christie.
Now, normally when you think about News Corp and politics, it's obviously Republicans who tend to get the best play, at least when it comes to Fox News and all the other attendant media outlets. But tonight, there is mounting questions going on about the relationship between, of all people, Rupert Murdoch and his own company and the Democratic governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo got $188 grand from HarperCollins, a News Corp book publisher, in a deal that could net him up to $700,000, all for a book that sold about, you heard me right here when I say 3,000 total copies, and Dominic owns 200 of them. But the book deal came as News Corp had several bits of business in process with the state, including tax breaks for web publishers, of which, yes, News Corp benefited, as well as TV and film credit bills, which, again, benefited News Corp. Now, there are new calls to see Cuomo's communications on the book deal, and there are other questions arising as well. Does this smell funny to you, Richard?
Well, the smell is less important than right now trying to get the information out. The problem for Cuomo is that this is coming at a time when he's focusing just on the actions of the legislature, Shelley Silver and others, and pretending that the same kinds of conflict don't exist for him. So there's a vulnerability here for him that's both political and legal. If he got a contract for books that was richer than the market deserved, and if at the same time there were decisions that were being made by his administration on contracts for education spending and the things you mentioned, then the kind of conflict that he's criticizing can be, he can be accused of the same thing. He's got to find a way to answer that rather than beat up on Fred Dicker, who deserves beating up, God knows. But this is not going to go away.
You know, Dom, I always had a question about the book that he did. I mean, I understood the timing of it. Certainly all politics is part of the playbook. Did he ever really care about how many copies he sold? I mean, this is a guy who's very concerned about image.
When it comes to vanity, they all care.
But he didn't do anything to really hump the book.
Right. Well, to answer your first question, Mr. Brodsky is a diplomat. I'll put it out there and be direct. Doesn't pass the smell test. Something is terribly wrong here. Something doesn't pass. Something's rotten in Denmark. I'm trying to figure out more and more ways I can say it.
I get the point.
You got the point. So a deal that could net you at a minimum, as far as we know, because the contract is not public. Mr. Transparency, the governor, the contract, I'm sounding like Bill O'Reilly now, but the contract is not in public view. So we know that it could net a minimum $700,000 to your pocket, Mr. Cuomo. We know that News Corp got some tax breaks, but we don't know what's going on. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I want to get to the next one, which is, it's a Jersey problem, but it also goes across to New York as well. But I'm talking about the Port Authority. Now, did United Airlines actually start a little-used flight route just for the benefit of the Port Authority chairman? Now, for 18 months, United ran a flight from its hub in Newark to Columbia, South Carolina, twice a week. Newark to Columbia on Thursday, back on Monday. Usually less than half full. In fact, it was one of the least filled flights in the entire country. And if you say, why am I bringing this up? One guy here, David Sampson. You remember him from Bridgegate, the Christie appointed former chairman of the Port Authority? Well, Newark Airport is run by the Port Authority. Sampson kept a weekend home near Columbia, South Carolina, and the flight route ended, just coincidentally, after Sampson resigned from the Port Authority, just after Bridgegate came to light here.
Such cynicism.
Oh, please.
A company wants to help a guy get to his house, and
This is how the railroads were built, weren't they?
That's exactly right. This is called flight neutrality.
Okay, but what?
Columbia is a major hub. I mean,
he was empty, and it's not the day after he resigned. What are you doing?
But it's either you go to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, as you know, or Columbia. Those are the two options for flights.
Okay, I got a bridge. It's a good bridge. It'll get you from Brooklyn to Manhattan. And you know what? I got a good price for you, too.
The bridge you should be referencing is probably run by the Port Authority because God only knows
This is just another reason that Port Authority bill that Cuomo and Christie vetoed, they ought to override those vetoes. And the Republican Senate in New York said they're going to do it.
Just how bad is the Port Authority right now?
It's bad because it's a Soviet-style bureaucracy floating out by itself.
You had
with
me
no
at
one looking
Soviet-style
over it.
bureaucracy.
I finally got a phrase that people like. You're gonna take it away from me? There's no oversight. It's run by the two governors out of their hip pocket. This is the inevitable result.
Right. The thing on the Port Authority was always, if you worked in politics, it was you want to get parked there. Like you go to the Port Authority, it's an authority, so it's a little bit independent. Salaries are high, and they'll never find you. That was the reputation on it.
You know about this, do you?
I know about it. I didn't do it.
And you might get a car, too.
I got a really interesting debate. I talked to the legal panel last night, but it's right now at the Supreme Court. It's a case that people everywhere are questioning how much of a say employers should and shouldn't have over how their employees look here. We're going to discuss that and more when we come back.